Thank you so much, Punit, for joining us on this podcast at Dawdle.Live. Got a very interesting set of topics. You've been an ex-entrepreneur, then went into corporates. Very interesting set of topics to discuss with you. But before we go there, I would like to give a formal introduction about Punit. Punit is a seasoned technology and project management leader with over a decade of experience driving large-scale IT programs. He is currently working as an associate vice president at JP Morgan Chase, where he drives strategic initiatives and execution across complex enterprise environment. With prior leadership roles at ITC Infotech, Mercer IT, or just cybersecurity, he has successfully led end-to-end project delivery, built high-performing teams, and managed client engagements across industries. He is known for his strong program management skill, which is kind of combined with entrepreneurial experience. As a former founder, he brings a results driven approach to delivering scalable and impactful technology solutions. Thank you so much, Puneet, for joining us on this show.
Thank you, Rishikesh. That was lovely introduction about me. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Puneet, and extremely grateful to be hosting you, Puneet. And the first thing is that you started your journey as a founder, and then kind of
Yes,
moved into large organizations,
right.
eventually leading large scale programs in enterprise and banking environment. So how is that mindset shift, like as you transition from building something of your own to operating within a highly structured organization?
Yes, absolutely. As a founder, when we start something, right, it is more focused towards the speed. You can call it as a speed, and things move quickly, very quickly in the terms of decision making. You are the owner, you know how to take the decisions, and you are ready to take that risk. But when you move to the higher scale enterprise versions, the mindset has to shift from moving fast to the aligning through the people, stakeholders, and following structured processes, which is more over on the part of a stability of the application. Because there is a lot of difference when you work in startup environment. It is all about how you drive it, how you take the decision making. The quick decision making is all about, because time is very limited in the startup. You have to invest a lot. So, but when it comes to enterprise, it is all about the stability and more on the compliance side. So that is how I had built. I know the both side of startup environment as well in the terms of enterprise.
So how difficult is was it, to kind of switch from that mindset to this mindset?
Yes, it was kind of, moreover, it was, I brought in certain project management skills since I started my career with project management itself. So that helped me to drive this easily in the terms of, so earlier we used to use very minimal processes in the startup. And when I moved to organizational structure, it was little bit like, understanding the risk and mitigating it. It was starting, it kind of a difficult, but later on in a couple of months we aligned to do it. So
And you have worked across startups, consulting, and now a highly regulated banking environment. So, how
yes.
does project management fundamentally change when you move into environments where risk, compliance, and stability becomes critical priorities?
Okay, as I said, right, in startup we focus more on the taking the speed up things speed and minimize. I think we don't focus more on the risks, and we are ready to take that risk. But in regulatory environment, in the banking, it is more on the stability, compliance, and minimizing the risk. It is more about the structured program. How do you deliver it in the terms of clear process, documentation, and approvals? That is what we more or follow up in the terms of coordination, risk. These are the very thin line which usually falls in any of the compliances, or a large scale application development. So that is the difference between the previous work environment and currently. But it has helped me in the terms of expediting things, because I do know how to take the decisions, since we I come up with the taking that risk. So how to mitigate it at very minimal time. So those all added a factor as an experience to me delivering the larger scale applications.
Yes. I think this is also an answer to the question that how did you manage to kind of, get into such an structured environment in a company like this after having a very long tenure as a founder? So how did you
Yes.
convince those people like?
No, in fact, that has helped me. When they see me as an entrepreneur, they know that the hurdles which I had passed through, I know that the skills which I brought in will definitely help in the other way around, to build up their applications. Since I had worked with all different technology, it is not going to be a single technology in the terms of execution. I brought in all those, and before getting in, becoming as a founder, I has worked as a project coordinator. So my journey started with project management, added skills, helped me to convince them. And in fact, looking at my portfolio itself, they were convinced to hire me.
You have led multi-million dollar programs and large cross-functional teams across geographies. So would you like to touch upon a few key lessons from managing large scale enterprise delivery that every project leader should understand?
Okay, when it comes to large scale, it is all about multi-dollar projects. It is all about how do you manage it. What I believe is communication, coordination, or a risk factor assessing. Right, these are the key factors to drive anything. Basically, we have to ensure that the risk which has been listed out or a coordination done across the project, right, that has to be absolutely crystal clear with the or open transparent to the stakeholders. And on top of that, you should ensure that all the risks or the tracking mechanism, you can call it as a tracking mechanism, right, has to be very crystal in the terms of all tracking individual resource level, capacity level, ongoing weekly statuses. This has to be very minimal, I ensure that that doesn't impact the overall progress also. That is how I take care of, at least looking at the how do I communicate, what do I communicate, and when to communicate. These are the three mantras which we should follow as a PM. Either it is a program management or a project, just a project manager. All these are the basic things which we have to take care to manage any multi-dollar project, right? How and it falls across the portfolio, and our job is to ensure that governance is met. Weekly status, monthly status has to be very clear in the rack status, and ensure that we resolve the risk or dependencies. The delay usually causes because of we don't focus more on the resolving the dependency. I believe the quick you take the decision to resolve the dependency, the earlier we delay.
Got it. And talking about handling large internal teams and vendor ecosystem simultaneously is a big challenge. So what are the
Yes.
biggest challenges in scaling execution across such complex setups where you're working with multiple vendors and also have to handle large internal teams?
Yes. I mean, when we deal more on the multiple teams, multiple vendors, and across different regions also, right? The biggest challenge is all about, how, because each vendor or a different region working, right? All
Yeah.
they have their own different kind of a priorities or a working patterns also. To focus more on this, then what I would, ensure that we have a clear ownership, common process across all the team members, and regular communication pattern. Whatever we decide as a pattern of the communication, right, weekly, monthly, whatever. So
Yeah.
that has to be common across all these vendors, irrespective of any location, right? We should ensure that, and have a basic tool like Jira or AMPP to track it and ensure that we do that regular check-ins. This is the very basic thing which we ensure that it falls across all the same. The governance has to be same for all the resources.
Yes. And how do you manage vendors, like since they come with different backgrounds?
Yes, I mean we do have their criteria when we onboard any vendors. We ensure that they falls under their KPIs, and every vendor has their own KPIs to be met, and we validate every quarterly. We validate it, and we give that regular interval every quarter. We give that feedback to the vendor resources if there are any issues falling across, or if there is a change in the scope, right? We ensure that we communicate it. So that is how we handle it. And the best thing is to ensure that all are in line with this, a single process for all the resources, irrespective of it is internal vendor. Everyone should follow the same process, so then things will be quite easy to execute it.
Yes. So means that you have to first of all create a process and then hand it over to the vendor so that he can kind of.
Yes, we
Now, in large organizations, Puneet, strong governance frameworks are non-negotiable, and you have already touched
yes
upon this. But
yes
at the same time, speed and agility are also critical for delivery. So how do you strike the right balance?
Okay. Yes, agility definitely. I mean, how do we ensure that in large organization? Usually, what happens is it is essential to manage the risk and ensure the compliance, but too much of it can slow down the team execution also. So I focus more on applying a strong governance where it really matters, like only risk,
Okay.
compliance, and financial controls, and to keep execution more flexible. So these are the outcome when you do that financial controlling of a tracking of the capacity, right? Then you
Okay.
will be able to manage it. This is how we should, and we should minimize that governance. When you talk about governance, it should have very minimal, like only reporting,
Yeah.
understanding the risk, and fixing the dependencies. That's
Okay.
all. that should not burden the team. So that minimizing will expedite your agility also accordingly.
And now the question is around AI. Like, with all these AI now entering into areas like planning, risk tracking, and delivery automation, how do you see the role of project and program managers evolve over the next few years?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is the hot topic now running across, right?
Yeah.
So we know that as a PM or a program manager, we have to align with AI or make use of AI. So when I say AI will take over a lot of routine, I believe that it will definitely take over routine work like planning, tracking, reporting, making things faster and more accurate compared to what we do it as a manual, right? This means that as a PM, we have to spend less time on coordination and more time on decision making. So our work is minimized with the spending time on coordination and more on the decision making, stakeholder alignment and strategies. That is where the as a PM I see as a AI, when AI come in, I think our focus shifts from coordination to decision making or a stakeholder and the strategies, building the strategies. So that will not impact, but we have to evolve according to AI and ensure that we implement that ongoing AI tools into our regular tracking mechanism.
Yes. So we have to keep on learning the new AI things and
Yes,
keep on
yes, you're right.
implementing that. And,
Yes.
so one very interesting question is that which instant did you like the most? The instant when you were an entrepreneur or the instant when you were working for an organization?
Definitely entrepreneur, because there you definitely have that flexibility, right? You own it, you take the risk, you
Uh,
deal it, and the reward is extremely high
mm,
compared to what we deal here now, right? So that level of here we have approvals again. You have
mm,
to talk to the stakeholders, you have to talk to the managers,
mm,
get that approval. That flexibility is absolutely not there, but
yeah.
it has own pros and cons impact.
And what's the plan in the coming years for you? Do you want to stick to the organization or you want to kind of get into entrepreneurship again?
It depends, really depends. Now currently I'm focused into leadership role, right? Since
Yeah.
I will continue to look gradually upscale my skills into the leadership role itself, where I ensure that large scale applications or companies which I get involved, and gradually future definitely hope things in line with my role or an interest, right? Entrepreneurship can start gradually.
Thank you so much, Puneet, for joining us and sharing all these insights. And thank you
Yes.
so much, for taking our time because, this is a unique combination because we find a lot of senior people who have been entrepreneurs and they are finding it difficult to get into the corporate. But I hope that, this podcast will also act as an inspiration for them.
Yes, definitely.
Besides, yes, this will also act as a guidelines to them that, what are those transferable skills, which can be, which an entrepreneur can carry into a bigger organization. As you told,
Yes.
speed, agility, decision making, all of that matters even in a bigger organization.
Yes, definitely it will matter. I mean, the basic understanding what I feel as a mantra to get success in any project delivery or a entrepreneur is
Yeah.
when, how, and what. These are the things which we should ensure that when to communicate, what to communicate, and how to communicate. If we know this, I think anyone can get succeed in any domain. It is not only to IT or a project management, across anything.
Thank you so much, Puneet, for joining us and sharing all these insights. We look forward to hosting you again in a different avatar. Thank you.
Definitely, I love to. In fact, thank you for bringing me on the podcast. It is really nice to see things making out and helping out people, leadership people to grow in and bring their skills to the light, right? Where people can use this as a reference. And this is absolutely great job, Rishikesh.
Thank you so much, Puneet.
Thank you. Have a nice day.